What's up? This is your boy Super, and I'm playing the Kerbal Space Program. Last time we left off, we finished the tutorial for training mission for suborbit flight. Our next one should be going to orbit finally. I'm excited too. Never been to space before. This is made by Take Two Interactive. I didn't think it was made by them. I thought it was made by a small indie company. And Take Two Interactive been around for like 10 years and had like a AAA hit. I can't really remember. It's a training, advanced construction. We're going to design a ship that can orbit the Earth and return. Welcome to the third and final tutorial about construction, the advanced construction tutorial. I've had to delay some important work today to fit this in, so pay close attention as I show you how a real rocket scientist makes orbital craft. Go on, go inside the valve. Alright, into the vehicle assembly building. In our last tutorial, we built a vessel that could escape the atmosphere, but it didn't have enough oomph to escape for long. This time around, we'll cover more advanced rocket concepts like multiple stages and boosters, as well as extra parts like RCS and solar panels. You'll want these if you spend more than a few minutes in orbit. When we're done, you'll have a craft capable of ascent to orbit, orbital operations, and a safe return to Kerbin. And you can test it out in the Go for Orbit tutorial, which will teach you how to make use of it all. You'll notice that there are lots of more parts available this time. That's because an orbit-capable craft is much more complex than that little puddle jumper I showed you how to make last time. However, the main principles are the same, so I hope you remember what I taught you. If you mess up and say somehow manage to delete your whole craft, you can open the radio menu and select undo to undo your last action. Again, you only have one pod available, so go ahead and select it. If you select the wrong part, change the cursor mode and press X on it in the main view to pick it up. Drop it back over the parts toolbar. Okay, so looks like we're gonna need a pod. Here's our Mach 1 command pod. Just like last time, select the parachute and place it. We only have the Mach 16 parachute. Again, like last time, adjust the parachute parameters, activating cursor mode and pressing square on the part you just placed. Change the min chute's pressure to 0.75, and when you're done, change focus and click next. We're now going to construct an upper stage. This upper stage will finish placing the pod in orbit, and once there, provide the RCS steering thrusters and electricity for the pod. It will also provide all maneuvering capability in orbit, including the re-entry button. It's going to consist of a decoupler. We just don't want to carry it home. An RCS fuel tank and a liquid fuel tank, 4 RCS thrusters and 4 solar panels and 4 batteries, and an efficient upper stage engine. That's quite the shopping list, isn't it? So let me know when you're ready to proceed. Firstly, we'll add a stack coupler below the pod to let us discard the parts we won't bring back with us. A stack coupler below the pod, alright. So this is a stack coupler. And there we go. Next, we'll add a RCS tank. Next, fuel tank. We got RCS fuel tank. These fuel tanks store non-monopropellant for RCS thrusters. New advances in plumbing technology made it possible to route RCS lines to any point in the ship. So unlike liquid fuel tanks, RCS fuel tanks can be placed anywhere. RCS stands for Reaction Control System, and this fuel will help us with fine maneuvers. And add one tank under the coupler. The coupler, yeah. Your craft is not going to read all of the monopropellant in the tank, so to save some weight, change the cursor mode and press it on it to get to the parts option to move the slider down to 100 units. Monopropellant is called that because while large rocket engines use two propellants and RCS uses a single propellant, RCS is generally less efficient but is good for small velocity changes in direction, and can be used to rotate the craft as well as move. Move the cursor slider down to 100 MP. It doesn't quite go to 100. Your craft is not going to need all the monopropellant in the tank, so to save some weight, change the cursor, select X to get into the parts option, and move the slider down to 100 units. I'm in the fuel tank, it's not going to 100 units. Select the fuel tank, RCS fuel tank. We got FL fuel tank, the T100 radial miniature fuel tank made to be even. No, okay, we got the RCS fuel tank. I'm pressing square. Let's move the slider down to 100. It's not moving. How do I move the slider down to 100? Why? Okay, that'll work. We'll be adding multiple liquid fuel tanks in this stage to get the right amount for the upper stage engine, and we need an extra tank to offset the weight of the RTS. So add a tiny rocket propellant and add tiny rocket propellant tank. It's the one named FTL. Okay. We'll be adding multiple liquid fuel tanks in this stage to get the right amount for the upper stage engine, and we need an extra tank to offset the weight of the RCS. So add a tiny rocket propellant tank. It's the one, then add a medium one below it. Okay, I didn't see the add a medium one below it part. So we got the 200, the 100, and the 400. Should be done now. Lastly, for the main parts of this upper stage, we'll add an engine. The Terrier engine produces almost no thrust at sea level air pressure, but it's highly efficient in space. This makes it a good choice for upper stage since the engine will not be activated until the rocket has reached the conditions where this kind of engine works well. If you select the wrong engine, you can always throw it away and try again. So engines, we need the what engine? The Terrier liquid fuel engine. Alright. Nicely done. It's pretty well assembled upper stage, if I do say myself. It'll get you to orbit if you put enough rocket under it. While we have this reasonable simple vessel here, let's explore one of the other useful tools we have available. To make sure that your ship flies controllably, some parts need to be placed carefully around the point inside the ship called the center of mass. The COM is a spot where the mass on one side is balanced with the mass on the other side. Thrust applied to the COM will cause the ship to move without unwanted rotation, while thrust properly applied around the COM will cause the ship to rotate without moving. This makes the COM such a useful and important thing that we added a tool to the assembly building can show it to you with a marker. Let's have a look at that indicator, how that indicator works here. Open the radial dial, select toggle overlays, then center of mass overlay, and we'll have it play. Center of mass overlay. Okay, it's selected. It's also the third icon on the bottom right here. Yeah, this one, center of mass overlay, center of thrust overlay, aerodynamic overlay. Okay. We're ready for the next one. Okay, let's adjust the fuel levels in some of the tanks and see how that affects the center of mass. Press square on each of the fuel tanks and drag the fuel and oxidizer propellant levels down to 0. And those two we don't need. Fuel, oxidizer, gray and orange. Okay, we'll have a gray and orange. Don't touch the monopropellant levels. The COM will move. Did it move? Yeah. Center of mass gets higher with the lighter it gets down there. We gotta get down to the other one there. Liquid fuel, 0. Oxidizer, 0. It moved very little on that part of the rocket. Okay, now go ahead and refill the tanks and we can proceed to add some of the accessories to the upper stage. They'll transform it from merely something that gets us into orbit to something that helps us once we're there. So refill the tanks? What? That's stupid. Now we can proceed to add, go ahead and refill the tanks, okay? That one's full. This one's not full. Why is it not filled still? The RCS one is, that one's full. That one's full. Accessories, I don't see any accessories. $120, 45, 55, 180, 220. It's full, dude. Alright, well, let me try to fill them all again. It's full. 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 It's not letting me go to next. Damn it. Okay, what about the oxidizer? Let's take away the oxidizer, see if it just needs fuel. No, not working. Don't know what to do here. I did refill the tanks. Fuel tanks. Add one of these. Add one of these. Add one of these. Refill them. That one's full. Didn't work. Didn't work. Didn't work. So what do we got? We got one fuel tank. So the parachute needs to be on stage 0. Refill the tank. Oh, we forgot the engine. Yeah, we need an interior engine. Okay. That didn't help though, but thruster limit. Take away all the oxidizer. Can't go next. So let's add the oxidizer back. Let's take away everything now. Okay, let's try everything from both of them. Nothing. Still nothing. Well, dang, what can we... Fuel tank pods all done. Command and control don't know about. Structural don't know about. Couplers no. Aerodynamics. Electrical. I don't know, let's go with aerodynamics. What do we got that's new? Aerodynamic nose cone? I'll try that. Where can we put that? No, let's not do the nose cone. Let's try the wings. Well, first, let's go to symmetry, radial 2, mirror 2. Okay, now let's go to back to radial 2. Gotta use this many radial 2. It is. Let's get these wings. Radial 2. Alright. Still can't go to next. What is over here? These are the wings on the bottom. Oh, that's the engine. And the fuel tanks. Then the command module. It's change the music down to 0 volume. Why is it not working? There we go. Can't have no music in here. Not till I see if it's copyrighted. Why can I not? Fix the fuel tanks. Guess I'm gonna have to start this scenario again. It's a bummer. Alright, training, advanced construction. Yada yada yada. Okay, got the command module. Parachute. Okay. Change the parachute to 0.75 minimum pressure. Okay, so we need a coupler. A stack coupler right here. Gotta go to the next menu, I guess. Yeah. Now we can get a stack coupler. Alright, got a stack coupler. Now we need RCS tank. RCS tank. Boom. Now we need change the cursor on it and move the slider down to 100 units, which we can't do. But it lets us proceed. So add a tiny rocket propellant tank, the T100 tank. Done. And add a medium tank below it, the 400. Done. Next, now we need the LV909 Terrier engine. LV909 Terrier liquid fueled engine on the bottom. Done. Next screen. Go down to this, toggle the mass, center of mass overlay on. Go to the next screen. Now we got, let's see, we got to adjust the fuel levels in some of the tanks and see how that affects the center of mass. Each of the fuel tanks drag the fuel and oxidizer propellant levels down to zero. Don't touch the monopropellant levels as they won't be burnt by the Terrier engine. As you are doing this, you will see the COM move. During flight, the vessel's empty tank will move in the same way as it fuels until both tanks are empty. Said move the fuel and the oxidizer propellant levels down to zero. That's one. Fuel and oxidizer propellant levels down to zero. That's two. Next screen. Now go ahead and refill the tanks and we can proceed to the next section of the tutorial. Tanks already filled. Next screen. Now that you know where the COMS is when the stage is full and when it is empty, you have the information you need to place RC thrusters. RCS thrusters are found in the command and control category. Moving the spaceship without rotating it is called translation. This is a useful kind of a maneuver for several reasons, including docking to another spacecraft. In order for translation with RCS to avoid unwanted rotation, you need to balance the thrusters around the COM. So the net sum of forces is balanced right on this natural pivot point. For two equal sets of thrusters, each set should be equidistant from the COM, and as far as a single set, what we're doing here, they should be right around the COM itself. What's make this so complicated is that the COM changes during flight, as you just saw, so you need to place the thrusters at a compromise point between the wet COM and the dry COM. Note that in career mode games, RCS thrusters don't become available until fairly late. In the meantime, the reaction wheel capability built into your command pod will probably be enough for turning in space, though reaction wheels will not allow you to translate. Alright. So it wants me to I can go to the next. Let's turn on the angle snap to make the aligning of thrusters easier. Right there. Snap mode is on. Thrusters. Command and control. Thruster block. And it was in between that spot and that spot, so right about there. Turn on angle snap to make an aligning thrusters either. Do that by opening the radio menu and selecting change symmetry radio 4 on your upper stage. Okay, radio 4 on the upper stage. So we get the engine. About right there. What's wrong with that? Is that too high? The tiny rocket propellant tank is about the right place to attach these just in case you need a hint. Tiny rocket propellant tank. Okay. If you don't get the placement quite right, you can use the offset gizmo to fine tune their position. Make sure you turn angle snap off before using offset. You will want fine adjustments for that. With the snap turned on, the adjustments are anything but fine. Change to cursor mode and select move tool at the top right of the screen. Then select an RCS part, pressing X on it, and use the control of the top right legend to move it. When done, go back to place mode. When you're all done, turn the COM indicator off. So I probably have to go to build actions, switch editor. I don't see move anywhere. These are apps, I believe. Tool place, tool move. Select an attached part to offset. Turn grid snap off. Oh crap, I done messed it up. Hold L1 left to move horizontal, no. Vertical, no, that's not it. It's not it. I can't do it. Oh, inside the dang thing? Go back to place mode. Did it work? No. What do I need to do with these? Okay. Get the moves tool. It says use offset. Okay. How will I know when it's the right spot? I just don't get it. Jesus. Okay, let's get back to this tool. The place tool. Turn toggle snap on. Okay. No. 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 Okay, so they're on the tiny rocket tank. Okay, guess I get the move tool, turn, snap off. Still nothing. They look like they're on there good. Okay, well let's turn this overlap. It's bothering me. Got it. Lots of things on the craft use electric charge, EC. That's why you use cool science. That's cool scientists call rocket electricity. In order to keep your batteries topped up, you'll need a way of generating power. Now, some generators quickly electricity while they're running, but you don't want to keep your engine running in orbit. Your orbit would get all kinds of messed up, and you'll run out of propellant. Our command pod has some batteries built into it, but to be safe, you can add more batteries And you can add solar panels or other electric generating items. We're going to do both. Switch to the electrical category now. Electrical category now. And make sure we're still in radial 4 mode. Yep. You'll use our part rotation skills to adjust the panels before placing them. That's the up button, left button, down button, and right button we used earlier. Grab the oxidizer stat solar panel, hold it over the lower end of the fuel tanks, and press the left button to rotate at 90 degrees, then press X to place the set of them. Then you're going to place a bunch of batteries in between the solar panels. On the bottom end of the fuel tank. Okay. About right there. And some batteries. Oh, these little bastards. Okay, we're done. Excellent work. You built a nice starter upper stage, which will do well for some orbital exploration. Now we need to get to work on getting it up to orbit, and for that we'll build up our lower stage. In comparison to the upper stage, it is quite simple. Just a couple of tanks and an engine. That won't be enough alone, however. We'll add some boosters too. Add another TR-18A stack decoupler at the bottom of the Terrier engine. Wow, so we're rolling with 2 engines on this bad boy. Alright. Now we're going to add fuel tanks to our lower stage. T400 fuel tank. And add 2 of the medium rocket propellant tanks to the bottom of each bottom of the stack. So we need another one, huh? For our lower stage, we need an engine that is a sustainer. That's an engine that burns from liftoff until well after the boosters separate. Let's get scientifical for a second. Rocket engines' performance is measured by specific impulse, and the ISP of an engine changes as the amount of atmospheric pressure around it changes. Just as the upper stage needed an engine that is good at the low air pressures of high altitudes, the lower stage will need boosters which are powerful at the higher air pressures of the low altitudes of the launch pad. And to help carry the rocket through the transition from launch to upper stage, we'll need a sustainer engine, which usually sits between boosters and upper stage engines from a performance perspective, having a wide range in between the two. So add the big engine you see there, the LVT-45 swivel, to the bottom of the tanks as our sustainer. And there we go. It's a big boy engine right there. At its default thrust level, the swivel is too powerful for the rocket we're creating, and for the ascent profile we're going to teach you in the Go for Orbit tutorial. So you'll need to lower its thrust level. This isn't as good as the solution as picking a smaller, lighter engine with the thrust level we want, but well, there are only so many options. Press square on the swivel and lower its thrust level limiter to 65. It will then only produce 65% of its full thrust potential, but it will also run longer because it's only burning 65% as much fuel. Thrust limiter 65. Got that. Jeez. You can tell this game was made for the computer. It's not going to let me go forward unless it's exactly 65. Let's see if I can adjust the sensitivity. Controls, cursor speed, Let me see if that makes any difference. Jesus H. Christ. Jeez, let's see if that works. Yes, awesome. Next, you'll now have the core of your rocket completed, but as I said before, we'll also be adding boosters to help the sustainer engine get the rocket up and running. We'll add two boosters symmetrically so that we keep our craft balanced to make sure we don't lug the useless dry mass of the boosters around after they burn out. We'll attach them using couplers. This time, however, we'll use radio couplers so the boosters can sit beside our lower stage core instead of under it. That way the sustainer and boosters can fire at the same time. Select the TT38K radial decoupler and add it for radial 2 symmetry near the bottom of the lowest tank of the fuel stage. Radial 2. Oh crap. 6, 8, 1, radial 2, radial coupler. I actually don't mind if they hang off. More boosters is something you often hear about the KSC, and now it's time to add some. Add a pair of R10 Hammer SRBs to the decoupler so that they have an extra kick early on. Boost couplers, where are the boosters, couplers, boosters at? Okay. R10 Hammer solid rocket fuel booster. Oh, now we're really getting somewhere. Unlike liquid fuel engines where you can adjust the throttle during flight, once you light an SRB it burns at a constant thrust till it's out of fuel. We can, however, use the throttle limiter as we did on the swivel to set that constant thrust before we roll out to the launch pad. Press square on one of the SRBs to change its thrust limiter to 50. Do note that changing a tweakable value on one part that's been placed using symmetry will have that same change applied to its symmetry counterparts. Remember when I said I'd teach you how to make that pod and thumper craft from construction basics survivable? Well, this thrust adjusting is how that can be done, although you'd have to put a decoupler on it. Change it down to 50. I can do that, I hope. There we go. Next, right now the SRBs have flat pancake tops, which is simply not a good look and bad aerodynamic. Let's fix that by adding some nose cones. They can be found in the aerodynamics section. Nosy conies. Boom. While we're on that tab in the toolbox, let's add some fins too. Some fins will come in various sizes, and as we learned earlier, will help stabilize your craft. Since these fins are control surfaces, they also add some extra control authority when low in the atmosphere, where the air is thick enough for them to have a helpful effect. Add the R8 winglets in radial 4 symmetry near the bottom of the lowest fuel tank in the lowest stage, and make sure they don't intersect with the decouplers and SRBs. If they do overlap them parts, any flight will be interesting but exceptionally short. Some nose fins in radial 4, radial 3. I cannot see where the other ones are, because that's what we're in radial 2. Radial 4. Boom. I don't like, oops. I don't like the placement of these. That's a little better. It's not good enough for him. How in the hell are you supposed to make it so they don't intersect with these things? Oh, that'll work. Awesome. Excellent. We've now got all the components on our basic orbital rocket, but let's run through a few extra things before we call it a day. Firstly, we should review the staging stack to check the order of the actions and parts displayed here. It's lucky I've highlighted this for you, because SRBs are set to fire before the sustainer, and that just won't do. You won't have enough thrust to get off the pad that way. Move the swivel staging icon down to... Which one is the swivel? Okay, that one. Move the swivel icon down to the same stage as the SRBs. And the SRBs are the bottom one. Swivel down to the SRBs. Move the swivel staging icon to same stage as the SRBs. Note that the automatically created staging sequence would work if we did not want the long burning sustainer to ignite at the same time as the high thrust boosters, but since we do, we have to adjust it manually. Finally, pick up the pod and rotate it 90 degrees around the vertical axes. This will rotate the ship, not just the VAB, but also set its orientation when we go to the launch pad so that a desired flight heading of east, compass 90, will be a matter of steering in the pitch up or down axis rather than left or right yaw. By default, parts in the VAB are also oriented so that they align north. Okay, pick up the pod. And rotate it 90 degrees. That didn't work. Okay, pick up the pod. Plus left or right button to roll it. Why is it not on there right? There. We always make every effort to ensure our brave crew survives, and hopefully we'll take the same time stance in the space program. It doesn't always work out that way, of course, but it's the thought that counts, at least to those of us not in the rocket at the time. With that in mind, let's set up an abortion action group for your craft and for use in the case of emergency. Note that in career mode, you'll have to upgrade the VAB or SPH in order to access action groups. Use L1 and R1s to navigate between modes and go to actions groups. Be sure of not being in cursor mode. Action groups. I'm in action groups, now what? Action groups let you assign the functions of one or more parts to a single specific group. There are some default action groups. Landing gear automatically go in the gear group, brakes on the wheels go in the brake group, etc. And some custom ones. To display the default action groups, press left in the launch pad or press right to display custom action groups. To set up an action group, select the desired action group with X from the menu, then activate cursor mode and press X on the part you want to activate. The actions already assigned to that group appear in the group actions column, and the actions that can be assigned from the selected part appear in the selection column. To add or remove items, you simply use X to move them left or right between columns. To clear all action group sections from a part, use reset in the selection column. We're going to set up the abort action group. It's triggered by pressing left and selecting abort, or by pressing L1, L2, R1, R2, or by pressing in cursor mode on the big red abort button in flight. It slides off from the left of the altitude panel at the top of the screen when you move the cursor over that area. First, select the abort button in the action groups column. Abort. Next. Great, now change to cursor mode and press X on the decoupler right below the pod. Press X on the decoupler right below the pod. I'm missing a decoupler below the pod. Okay, now right there. Okay. Okay, and press X on the decoupler right below the pod. Close the cursor mode and circle and add its decoupler action to the group. Decouple action. Now, and then change the cursor mode and press X on each liquid engine in turn. Assign their shutdown functions to the group. Finally, each liquid engine in turn. So that's the liquid engine and shutdown function. I don't see it. So we get the RCS fuel tank. I don't see its shutdown. We got to get back to abort, and we got a fuel tank. How did I do the first one? Disable same vessel. I don't know, man. I don't see any shutdown functions, but here's the RCS. Let's remove action. Select RCS. RCS fuel tank. What is that action supposed to be? It says abort. When we press the abort button, oops. When we press the abort button, the decoupler should decouple. When we get the fuel tanks, it should. I don't know. My engine's not lining up. Disable. Disable. And now to the radio coupler. So the boosters fall off? I don't see the radio coupler. That's what it was on, the boosters, correct? I don't see the radio decouplers anywhere. Can't get to them. Radio decouplers Okay, forgot one of the fuel tanks. Got the RT-100, but not the top one. What is this? Disable. Decoupler. Decouple. We're not done yet? Change the cursor mode. And let me go ahead and try to reset this. Select abort. Select the decoupler. Oops. Select abort. Why isn't it letting me go to the cursor mode? Okay, select the decoupler. Decouple. Select the liquid rockets. We got T100 fuel tank, T400 fuel tank. Oh, we've got to do all of these babies. Yeah. Disable. 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 Oops, I didn't notice there was a couple in there. Disable. Disable. Radial decouplers. Decouple. We still can't do it. Hmm. The liquid fuel tanks. Alright, well, let's take a look at the liquid fuel tanks. These tanks, propellant, monopropellant. So liquid fuel tanks. Okay, so the monopropellant, I guess, doesn't have to be considered as a fuel. So the mono RCS tank. How about now? No? Oh, well, this has been your boy Super playing Kerbal Space Program. We're gonna have to finish our orbital rocket in the next video. I'm really glad you watched. I hope you would help me out a lot if you could like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.